Okay, let's now test our ability to upload photos, but before we even attempt this, let's take a look at the status of our API server. And the fact it all looks clean without any hot reload errors makes me suspicious. And do I trust it? No, of course I do not. And I'm going to stop the API server and I'm simply going to restart it. You may be wondering why I don't do something like this, by the way, where I say .NET Watch and we can. And let me clear the screen, I'm right at the bottom here. And you may be wondering why I don't just do something like this, where I say .NET Watch and say --no--hot--reload, because it never works. And this is how we can actually disable this, and sure, normally I would do that. But I've been on Udemy a little while now, and no matter how much I suggest doing something, sometimes the allure of using hot reload overtakes the part of the brain that says that's never going to work. And it's really just to demonstrate that some of the tools that we use, even if they look like they've done something that works, doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. And I also want to demonstrate continuously that the first troubleshooting step to take is always to restart the server to see if the issue persists after the problem, because as a new developer or someone still learning the trade, then it's very easy to believe what the tools are telling you and not to do the basics first. And the very basics is to just simply restart the service and see if the issue persists. And if the issue persists, then sure, you know you've got a problem. So in this case, when I use .NET Watch, it kind of forces me to continuously come back and check the status of the API and make sure it is restarted. And when something doesn't work the first time as I would expect it to, it gives me the opportunity to come back and always demonstrate the first troubleshooting step, which is to restart the service. And that is the very specific reason that I've not gone to using the no hot reload option. And I think even using that nowadays, I think ever since Microsoft introduced the hot reload in .NET 6, it's never really worked as well as it did previously, when it was just simply a file watcher where it would look for changes in your code and then just simply restart the service. That seemed to work quite well. But when they introduced hot reload, I've never had a good experience, and effectively, really, I treat it as though I'm using .NET Run, where I come back in and restart the service on a regular basis. One day though, one fateful day, we're going to use this tool to start our service, and it's going to hot reload our changes. That might be in .NET 10 or 15 or .NET 20, but one day we're going to execute this command and it's going to work. So I also use this because I'm optimistic that one day that will be working perfectly, even for an API type of project. So now anyway, this is now restarted, and what we'll do, we'll actually add a breakpoint in here as well, just so we can see the progress of our image making its way up to Cloudinary and what we actually get back from Cloudinary as well. So let's add the breakpoint to the first line of our user, where we get our user from the repository, and that will give us a chance to make sure our get username function is going to work as well. And then we can go through and see what we get. So let's go to Postman, and inside section 11, we're going to log in as Lisa and save the token, just as normal. So I'll click send to log in and get a new token. And then we've got a request to add a photo for a user. Now, please don't use the image that is listed inside here. Please just remove that. And you want to get a new file from your local machine. It doesn't matter what it is. Any image file will suffice. So I'm just going to select a new file from my machine. I've got a bunch of photos. I haven't provided these. They're just superhero photos that I'm going to use to demonstrate. And we'll use this one. So if I click send, oh, by the way that we upload an image using Postman is we actually send this up as form data. And inside this file is a key of file. And that key is important. And if I go back to the code, in order for this to bind successfully with our API endpoint, then it has to match the name of the parameter that we have inside here. So this is called file. Inside Postman, the key is called file. The casing does not matter in this case. And if something is not working quite right, please do follow that particular rule where the key needs to match the name of the parameter we're binding to here. So with that preamble out the way, let's now click send, and I should get taken to my API endpoint, and I didn't because I actually forgot to start the debugger. So at least that proves it was successful, because now we've got the response back from Cloudinary. But if we do run this through the debugger, and I need to go and hit play and attach this to the process, so I'll search for API and select API, and okay, so the debugger's running even though I didn't get the terminal up, and I'll click, well, let's change the image, and I'll just select a different file and go to API photos and say Wonder2, and I'll send this one, and now we get taken across to our API controller. Well, we know now that the get user by username is working, so we can get or move past that one. We should have the user, so we're going to move past that one. And at this point, we upload our image to Cloudinary, and it's list results objects that we want to take a look at. So we haven't executed this line yet, so I'm going to step over so that line does get executed. And off it goes to Cloudinary, and now it's come back. We've got the response from Cloudinary. And if we take a look at the results, this tells us what Cloudinary returns to us, and lots of different properties inside here. And we even have to click on the more to get to the more properties, because there are so many. So one of the things we get back from this is the public ID, and we can see that the public ID is made up of the folder name, the DANet8 that I provided, and then we've got the actual public ID inside there. And if we scroll down a bit more, we've got two URLs. One of them is going to be deprecated at some point, but they are exactly the same. And it's the secure URI, I think. What did I use? Because one of them was deprecated. No, it's a secure URL. This one is fine to use. The other one is deprecated by all accounts. But that's been deprecated for quite some time, and they're still both available. So, but we're using secure URL for the URL. And such a big object, there's even more things to look at. And nothing else of note inside there. So if we did get an error, which we did not, then the error object would be populated, and it would tell us why our image upload did not succeed. And that worked fine, so we can continue this. We know the rest of this is going to be okay, so I'm just going to hit continue. And then if we go back to Postman, then we can see that we now have a second image. And what we should find is that these images are square images as well, because the images that I'm selecting, if I go back to the API photos and take a look at this one, this is a rectangular image. This is it in its full size. And the second one that I uploaded, well, that is kind of square anyway. But this first one, we'll be able to see if that is genuinely a square image. So if I go to get user by username and click send, then what we should find is that Lisa now has 3 images. We've got one with ID of 1, one with ID of 11, one with ID of 12. The one with the ID of 11, that was the rectangular image, and if I select this, then this opens up a new tab in Postman, and I can click send. And what we'll find is that that image has been transformed, and now it's a square image. So our transformation has worked, and it's based, or it's gravitated towards the user's face and cropped the image accordingly. So great, now we've got the ability to upload images to our API. And we'll soon set this up on the client, but there is one small piece of admin I want to take a look at before we do so. Because we're sending up an HTTP post request when we make this request. But what we're returning is not strictly accurate for an API endpoint when we create a new resource on the server. This 200 OK, of course it works, but it's not really what we should be sending back. And in the next lesson, we'll take a look at adjusting that.